Welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown as we go over the three key matchups for the New York Giants in Sunday's home game against the Baltimore Ravens. Well, we know where the Giants stand these days, folks. They are 2-11. They have lost 8 in a row, and should they lose to the Ravens on Sunday, the 9-game losing streak in season would tie for the longest in franchise history. So indeed, it's been a difficult goal for the Giants, and things are not getting any easier because they've got a whole slew of injuries. And I think that's the first thing we do as we talk about the state of the Giants. If you haven't been listening or watching to the news all week, you know that Drew Lock has a heel injury and a boot on his foot, which means the Giants have to go back to Tommy DeVito, who started 3 games ago. Well, his forearm is healed up, so he's going to get the start, his second start of the season, as the Giants take on Baltimore, a team which we'll get into in just a bit, but certainly has deep playoff aspirations. So Locke has the boot on his foot. They don't expect it necessarily to be long term, but it doesn't appear likely, as we talk about this on Friday morning, that he will even be available as the number 2 quarterback, which means journeyman Tim Boyle, in all likelihood, will be the number 2 for the Giants in this game. But we'll see what Tommy DeVito does. Remember, just 3 games ago, he was able to get in there and did some things as he tried to bring the Giants back in the second half. But that was not to be in that ball game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right. So where are we now with the Giants besides the quarterback issue, which, again, it's been a rotating situation because of the injuries. It does not appear, based on practice this week, that either Nacho Nunez-Roches, the defensive tackle, Bobby Okereke, their middle linebacker, Drew Phillips, their slot corner, or John Runyon, their starting left guard, will be available for this game, at least not as of late in the week. Doesn't look promising for any of them. All of the other Giants at least had the opportunity to practice on a limited basis, and it does seem like even both tackles, Jermaine Illuminor, who would be getting the start at left tackle, and Evan Neal, who would start at right tackle, despite their bumps and bruises, it does appear like they are pointed in the right direction to play against the Ravens. That, of course, would be a comfort to Tommy DeVito, getting as much experience as possible on the edges against Baltimore's defense. Now, in terms of where the Giants stand, look, there is no question that they have had a great deal of difficulty winning games this year. No one's denying that, but they have certainly been in most of their games. And the good news, if you want to have some, is that the Ravens have lost 2 of their last 3, and they are 8-5 on the season. The bad news is they're coming off of a bye week, so they've had time to prepare. Head coach John Harbaugh is usually a very strong and strict taskmaster, and in all likelihood, he's got his team whipped up into a frenzy, attempting to make a strong playoff run. So they will not take the Giants lightly. In fact, they're probably going to be at amongst their best that they've been all season. In fact, to be honest with you, if you go back only a few years, since Lamar Jackson has been their quarterback, the Ravens are 5-1 in his starts coming out of a bye week. They will be prepared. They will be ready. They will probably be crossing all of their T's and dotting all of their I's. So I don't think there's much chance that the Ravens will overlook the Giants. You'll recall a few years ago when the Ravens came up to MetLife Stadium, the Giants were able to escape with a victory when they forced Lamar Jackson to fumble at the end of the game, snuffing out Baltimore's final attempted scoring drive. Now, why is that important? Well, I'm going to go back and take a little bit of a glance here because this is an important stat to look at for you numerologists who care so much about statistics and maybe not necessarily the game film. Uh, that would be only one of 2 losses that the Ravens have suffered against an NFC opponent since Lamar Jackson took over. He is 23-2 in his career against the NFC. The Giants with a 24-20 victory in Week 6 of the 2022 season, and that victory was probably one of the key victories in the season that gave everybody a real feeling that the Giants would be playoff contenders. Jackson's other such loss against an NFC team, well, it was 2 weeks ago, Week 13 against the Philadelphia Eagles, 24-19. So certainly the odds are stacked up against the Giants if you strictly look at the numbers, but they do have a little bit of history on their side. All right, to continue with the state of the Giants for just a couple of more moments, then we'll flop it and give you an idea of what's going on with the Ravens this season. The Giants have yet to win a home game. You'd have to go back to 1974 when they were at the Yale Bowl to find a season where they did not win a game at home. They have 35 drops on the season as that number just continues to escalate. They had 4 last week in the loss to the New Orleans Saints. They have 85 missed tackles on the year, according to Sports Radar, which is the 10th most in the league. However, they come off a terrific effort against Alvin Kamara, one of the premier all-around running backs in the league, when they held him to less than 50 yards on the ground during the course of the game. The Giants, we know it. They are last in the NFL at 15 points a game. In the middle of the pack, allowing 22 points a game. Problem is when you're so challenged offensively and you haven't scored more than 20 points in each of the last 4 contests, it puts you in a bit of a bind. Now, the one thing I will note is that the Giants, if they're going to upset the Ravens, and let's not kid ourselves, it would be quite a large upset, they're going to have to get some turnovers. Trey Hawkins, the corner, young corner, who injured his back in the last game against the Saints, came up with what was the Giants' only second interception of the season. They absolutely, positively need to get 2 or 3 turnovers in this game. Now, they always say they come in bunches, and when it rains, it pours. Well, they had one opening day against Minnesota, and it took them all the way until their 13th game of the season to get another interception. They do have 8 fumble recoveries, but the interceptions are really the thing that's been lacking with this team throughout the course of the season. The state of the Baltimore Ravens, we go to that. You already know pretty much what you need to know about the Giants now that we've caught you up to date. They are 3rd in the NFL, scoring 29 points a game. 23rd in the league, allowing 24 points a game. Well, yes, indeed, that is their Achilles heel. They're 8-5 on the season, but they are 0-5 this year when scoring 24 points or less, which tells you the go-to point total for the Giants offense, and they've had a very difficult time reaching it, would be 24 points. They scored 29 against the Seattle Seahawks this year, the only time that they have reached 24 points during the course of this season. That would certainly appear to be the magic number against the Ravens. Again, 0-5 when they score 24 points or less. King Henry, Derrick Henry, fighting Saquon Barkley, the NFL rushing leader for this year's rushing title. He's 93 yards short of what would be his 4th 1,500-yard rushing season. Barry Sanders is the all-time leader in NFL history with 5 of those. Henry's averaging 108 yards a game on the ground this year. And the Giants have allowed 3 different running backs to rush for at least 100 yards on the season. Now, to be frank with you, Henry is a much different animal than Alvin Kamara. Henry is big, strong, powerful, and as defensive coordinator Shane Bowen said, he may have the best stiff arm in football. This is a much different animal as he pounds it out and pushes the pile than Alvin Kamara. I think it's unrealistic to expect the Giants to hold up defensively against the run as they did against the Saints in this game against Baltimore. So I'm not even going to list in my three key matchups for the Giants Derrick Henry because I think it's almost a fait accompli. You got to figure he's going to be good for his 100 yards. The question for the Giants becomes, do you prevent him from dominating the game when he rolls up an even bigger number? He's had 6 100-yard games so far this season, and his season high is 199 yards against the Buffalo Bills. He is averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. That is third best in the NFL. And he's got 13 rushing touchdowns, which leads the league. And he has had 3 games of at least 2 rushing touchdowns. He has been a potent offensive force. You could argue he and Saquon Barkley are the two co-favorite non-quarterbacks in the running for MVP of the league this season. Now, other than Henry, well, there's really not much else unless you consider quarterback Lamar Jackson, who does have one 100-yard rushing game this year. It was 122 yards against Kansas City. He's run for over 675 yards this year and is averaging 6 yards a carry. That actually happens to be second in the NFL among rushing qualifiers. Obviously, I'm kind of joking with you just a little bit here because we all know that Jackson has to be considered a significant part of the Ravens' rushing attack, and he is going to take it down anytime he wants to. In fact, the pattern for Jackson over his career, and certainly recently, he used to be a one-look and then run quarterback. At this point in his career, he's looking for his first and then second option. After the second option, that's when he pretty much is going to tuck it down and run. The Ravens had a fully padded practice just the other day on Wednesday as they came off of their bye. And one of the things that their offensive linemen actually do is practice how to block for a scramble drill. Because when Lamar Jackson takes off, it's pretty hard to see through the back of your head what he's going to do with the ball. Well, they pretty much have some type of clue because they're looking for what the defensive players are doing. And that's the key for the offensive line of the Baltimore Ravens, which has only allowed 19 sacks this season, a ridiculously low number. It's because when Jackson breaks off into the scramble drill with his receivers, the offensive linemen kind of go a little bit of half speed. And what they're looking to do is read the hints of the defense, looking at where the defense is trying to move and where their eyes are going, where their hands are going, where their body movements are going. And it's a read and react blocking situation for the Ravens offensive line as they then block off of what they see the defensive linemen doing as they're trying to track down Lamar Jackson. Interesting concept. It has worked very well for them because they do not have the greatest offensive line in the league. But when you have Lamar Jackson, who can buy as many as what Shane Bowen says, maybe 10 seconds on a passing play, it just helps an awful lot. And then, of course, again, the tractor trailer known as Derrick Henry, who can muscle his way through any pile of humanity, if you will. And then Bowen adding that if you give Henry a crease, and we've all seen it, he gets to that second level. He does have a second gear and can open it up with deceptive speed. In fact, he has a long of 87 yards on a touchdown run earlier this season. So don't just think that Henry's a plotter. If you haven't watched any tape this year, I can tell you that would not be the case. He does get it going in the open field and can take off in a hurry. All right, what else do we want to tell you about the Ravens? Well, again, offensively, number 1 in total net yards a game, over 420. Number 2 in rushing at 180, basically, and that's because of Henry, but you already know that. Passing, they're at over 240 a game, which is 5th in the NFL. So you put all these numbers together, they're terrific on third down at over 46%, third in the league, and they are number 1 in the red zone. And that's because of the versatility of Jackson and the brute force and strength of Henry. 75% touchdown efficiency inside the red zone, number 1 in the NFL. But now, where is it that you can hurt the Ravens? Well, they only are 18th in defensive red zone efficiency, allowing 56% touchdowns on opportunities inside the 20. And against the pass, they're giving up over 260 yards a game. That is dead last. We go to our 3 key matchups for the Giants, and I'm going to go with tight end Mike Andrews against linebacker Isaiah Simmons. We know the Giants are down Tyler Nubin. He's on injury reserve because of an injury, which means that Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock will be the 2 starting safeties. I would suspect that we will finally get to see an awful lot of Isaiah Simmons in this game, as he can certainly man up with the athleticism that he possesses against Mark Andrews. Andrews for the season, 43 catches, over 11 yards a catch. He's got 7 touchdown receptions. That's tied for 5th most in the NFL, but here's the funny part. He was a little bit dry early. All 7 have come in the Ravens' last 8 games. So he has truly been a very important target in crunch time when the pass is needed the most for Jackson as he finds the end zone. So I'm looking at Mark Andrews, I should say, against Isaiah Simmons. Now, I'm assuming that we will see Tay Banks back in the lineup for the Giants. He's been practicing on a limited basis after missing a little bit of time with sore ribs. I'm going to match him up against Zay Flowers. Flowers has 4 100-yard games this year, had a big 9-catch, 132-yard game against Washington, 60 receptions on the season for 14.5 yards a catch. He's a big yak yardage guy. In fact, the Ravens have 6.5 yak yards per reception. That is good enough to be tied for 3rd in the NFL. We will see if Tay Banks can continue his inconsistent play but strong play. Look, the Giants have not allowed a 100-yard receiver yet this season. And while Banks has given up some touchdowns, and we understand that, he usually does a really good job of tackling and of keeping the ball in front of him. So I'm going to go with Zay Flowers against Tay Banks. My other key matchup to watch for the Giants in this one is obviously going to be Lamar Jackson, because you just don't know how many times he's going to be able to succeed through the air, or if it's going to be because of his legs, against linebacker Micah McFadden. McFadden comes off an 11-tackle game against the Saints in which he had 5 tackles for a loss. You could argue it may have been, arguably, again, his best game since he came to the Giants. Now, Jackson has 2 300-yard passing games this season. He threw for a season-high 348 and 4 touchdowns against Cincinnati back in November. He also threw 5 touchdown passes in a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in October. So you can't sleep on his arm, obviously. 7th in the league at over 3,200 yards, completing more than 2/3 of his passes, and is 2nd in the NFL with 29 touchdown strikes. And in fact, 4 times this year, he's thrown at least 3 touchdown passes in a game. He is the number 1 passer rating quarterback in the league. I don't really believe much in that stat, but I throw it out to you because he is atop of the charts. The important thing for the Giants is that they don't allow him to convert on any broken plays. It's tough enough to deal with him on the standard routine plays, but the last thing in the world that you want Jackson to do is to wind up turning a broken play into a big play or a score. The Giants would like to keep this game methodical, drag it down into the mud. Look, over the course of the last 3 games, the Ravens lost to the Steelers 18-16, beat the Chargers 30-23, and then lost to Philadelphia 24-19. You have to shorten the game. It's clear. The Ravens defense, yes, they're number 1 against the run, but that's only because, or at least primarily because, teams have so much success throwing the ball against them that you don't have to run it much. And then the other thing is very simple. The Ravens often just build it up offensively. Teams are coming from behind and have to throw it. So it's really simple if you're the Giants. What you want to do, and it may not be, in fact, it's not easy to do, but what you want to do is jump out early. Show the Ravens that you will match their intensity, match their energy, match their fight, come out and have a really strong first quarter. Heck, have a really strong first half. And if at all possible, take a lead into the third quarter so that you can bring this game into a manageable situation where if it's only a 2-quarter game and you can control the clock some with short passes and certainly with your own running game, keep them off balance defensively so that they've got trouble getting the ball away from you and giving it back to Lamar Jackson. That's the overall philosophy of how you can compete in this game if you are the New York Giants. Okay, we will be back on Monday morning with our New York Giants game balls and gassers for this home game against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. I'm Paul Dottino, and as always, you can catch the Big Blue Breakdown as part of the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and Media Network. We'll see you next time.